So we have a new protocol today, SMTP. We are at task number 5 inside the network services 2. Understanding SMTP. What is SMTP? SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. It is utilized to handle the sending of emails. In order to support email services, a protocol pair is required, comprising of SMTP and POP-IMAP. Together they allow the user to send outgoing mail and retrieve incoming emails, respectively. The SMTP server performs 3 basic functions. It verifies who is sending emails through the SMTP server. It sends the outgoing email. If the outgoing mail can't be delivered, it sends the message back to the sender. Most people will have encountered SMTP when configuring a new email address on some third-party email client, such as Thunderbird. As when you configure the new mail client, you will need to configure the SMTP server configurations in order to send outgoing emails. POP and IMAP. POP or Post Office Protocol and IMAP, Internet Message Access Protocol, are both email protocols who are responsible for the transfer of email between a client and a mail server. The main difference is in POP's more simplistic approach of downloading the inbox from the mail server to the client, where IMAP will synchronize the current inbox with new mail on the server, downloading anything new. This means that changes to the inbox made on one computer over IMAP will persist if you then synchronize the inbox from another computer. The POP-IMAP server is responsible for fulfilling this process. How does SMTP work? Email delivery functions much the same as the physical mail delivery system. The user will supply the email, a letter, and a service, the postal delivery service, and through a series of steps will deliver it to the recipient's inbox, which will be in real life a post box. The role of the SMTP server in this service is to act as the sorting office. The email, which would be the letter in real life, is picked up and sent to this server, which then directs it to the recipient. We can map the journey of an email from your computer to the recipients like this. And here we see we are us here, and we recipient the person who will receive our email, and we send an email. It goes to SMTP server, it goes to the internet, from the internet to POP-IMAP server, and from that it goes to the recipient. Also here it is explain each step. The email user agent, which is either your email client or an external program, connects to the SMTP server of your domain. For example, smtp.google.com. This initiates the SMTP handshake. This connection works over the SMTP port, which is usually 25. Once these connections have been made and validated, the SMTP session starts. The process of sending mail can now begin. The client first submits the sender and recipient's email address, the body of the email, and any attachments to the server. The SMTP server then checks whether the domain name of the recipient and the sender is the same. The SMTP server of the sender will make a connection to the recipient's SMTP server before replying to the email. If the recipient's server can't be accessed or is not available, the email gets put into an SMTP queue. Then the recipient's SMTP server will verify the incoming email. It does this by checking if the domain and the username has been recognized. The server will then forward the email to the POP or IMAP server, as shown in the diagram above. Yep. As you can see over here, it will go from this to this. Then the email will then show up in the recipient's inbox. This is a very simplified version of the process, and there are a lot of sub-protocols communications and details that haven't been included. If you're looking to learn more about this topic, this is a really friendly to read breakdown of the finer technical details I actually used it to write this breakdown. So the creator of this page actually used from How Stuff Works, an article created by Marshall Brain and Tim Crosby. If you want to read more about this, you can access it over here. You can see the URL over here. What runs SMTP? SMTP server software is readily available on Windows Server platforms, with many other variations of SMTP being available to run on Linux. More information. Here is a resource that explains the technical implementation and working of SMTP in more detail than I have covered here. And you can see over here, After Nerd blog about blog post about SMTP. You can read more about this. Answer the questions below. What does SMTP stand for? It stands right over here. We can see Simple Mail Transfer Protocols. What does SMTP handle? The sending off. Answer in plural. These are emails. What is the first step in the SMTP process? In step number 1, we can see over here SMTP handshake, which is the first process to establish the SMTP handshake. What is the default SMTP port? As you can see, still in step number 1, SMTP port, which is usually 25. Where does the SMTP server send the email if the recipient server is not available? If the recipient server can be accessed or is not available, the email gets put into an SMTP queue. On what server does the email ultimately end up on? The server, after we have the checking and the user is recognized, the server will then forward the emails to POP-IMAP. So it's POP or IMAP. Can a Linux machine run an SMTP server? Yes. Can a Windows machine run an SMTP server? Yes. Awesome.